Wake up, Dad. We had a surprise for you. A few years ago, my dad was staying with us in Florida, and he woke up, and we certainly had a surprise for him. Just the year before, my dad was visiting us, and we took a road trip down to South Florida. And as we sat on the beach in South Florida and we watched the sunset, my dad said, "Wow, this is beautiful. This is one of my bucket list items. To be on this beach, to be in South Florida, to be with my daughter, just hanging out." I definitely took the opportunity to probe him on a couple of other bucket list items. One of them was riding in a helicopter. So when he came to visit us the next year for his birthday, I thought this would be the absolute best time to knock off one of those items on his bucket list. So when I woke him up that morning, we didn't tell him where we were going. We hopped in the car and we drove to the airport in Clearwater. We got out of the car and he said, "What's going on here?" "Dad, guess what? I booked you an hour ride in a helicopter to knock one off your bucket list." It was surprising, but he wasn't as excited as I thought he'd be. He goes and he boards the helicopter. Unfortunately, it was one of those smaller models without doors. He took off. He waved at us. They did a couple of circles, and they came back about 30 minutes early. He gets down, and "What's wrong? Is everything okay, Dad?" Well, needless to say, he wasn't as elated as I thought he'd be. The first thing he said was, "Sherry, that was my bucket list. It didn't mean that I wanted to die today. I saved that for the end of my life." So many of us have a bucket list. As Nancy said, you've read about them, you've seen videos and pictures and books. And when we think about bucket lists, we think of these huge, grandiose events. And we write down our list and we struggle to write them off. Why do we do it? Who does one? What do we accomplish? I was talking to one of my best friends about the term bucket list. And for her, she says that it's exciting and it's motivational and it drives purpose for her towards a greater goal. Surprisingly, she says that she has multiple bucket lists. She has a daily one, so it may be do the laundry, feed the dog. There's a weekly one. I want to make sure that the garden gets done this week. Seasonal ones. This year, I want to take the kids somewhere special. I want to go on a hike. I want to save up enough money. And yearly ones. Did I put back enough money for my child's college? And then her life bucket list. For her, each bucket pours into the next bucket. When she's doing something as simple as doing laundry, it may be a menial task, but for her, it's opening the path so she has more free time to spend with her daughter and her husband. And so that opens up to her weekly and her seasonal and her life bucket list. Bucket lists, I thought, wow, that's weird. I thought they would be something bigger. But when I looked it up, I found that that's true. A bucket list is a collection of goals. It's your dreams or aspirations. And the point of them is to accomplish something within your lifetime. So what my best friend's doing is exactly the right way. You don't say, "Hey, before I die, I want to do these 5 things." Along the way, you start building a list. So I did some research, and believe it or not, 95% of people have a bucket list, and 21% of them change that at least one time during their life. 66% of them will check off something on their bucket list at least once per year. A bucket list isn't something that you should keep in your drawer and you should look at when you're 80, but it is something that you should continually look at and continually make progress on. When my daughter was actually in 1st grade, she came home with a bucket list. It said, go to SeaWorld, that's accomplishable. Go to the Florida Aquarium, okay. Go to Alaska, and go to Paris. We're like, wow, this is definitely an aspirational bucket list. Let's see what we can accomplish. Even though some of those things were pretty high end, within the next year or two, we actually went to Paris because that was on her bucket list. And we thought, you know what, let's make that as a goal as a family. We also went to SeaWorld because that was a little bit more accomplishable. But I think it's really important that no matter what your age, you start creating these goals. 38% of people say they will start their bucket list at a certain age and time. And we have all heard those sad stories of someone who's worked multiple hours, 60, 70 hours a week, putting money away, building a summer home, only for the day after they've retired for them to get shut down by lightning or a car or have a heart attack. I even had a friend who for years, they were renovating a cabin in Tennessee. At least 5 to 7 years, they would take off time, they would go up, they would renovate it. And they decided to go there when they were retired. They went there, they spent 1 week. They turned on the heat, and a fire started inside of the cabin, burning down everything. Everything. All of those years of waiting, gone. Annette White says, it's never too early to begin a bucket list because you don't want to wait for something someday that may never happen. We have to remember that. We all take time for granted. We all take life for granted. We just assume that, hey, when I turn 50, I'll be able to accomplish this. When I turn 70, I'll be able to accomplish that. But we have to remember that every day is special. We have to remember that we can start working on that bucket list now. How so? Start brainstorming. Sit down with your favorite music, looking at some views, and start thinking back to when you were a kid. What did you want to do? What did you want to be? Go back to being that child and nurture some of those dreams. Then start keeping track of things. Because I think that's another thing that we do. We don't keep track of things, and then we lose time. And we don't feel like we've accomplished anything. I want you to start today. And I want you to stop dreaming about your bucket list, and I want you to start living it.